a Honda, see what it says here? 4-stroke whipper snipper. So if it's a 4-stroke, what does that tell us? First thing it tells us is it's got oil in it. If it's a 2-stroke, there wouldn't be any oil. So it's the same 5 things on this that we got to check as a lawnmower, except this one doesn't have a fuel tap. So yeah, we'll check the fuel. Yeah, so that's the first thing we'll do. We'll check the fuel. So number 1, check the fuel.
A little bit there.
Yeah, there's enough there. Okay. What's the next one? Main mark. Oil. Check the oil. Yep. Other way. Now remember how to tell, if you can't remember how to undo anything, what do we think about?
Clockwise.
Yeah. What's the thing we think about if we can't remember which way a nut goes?
It's a little bit.
Remember what I told you the other day? Yeah. The tap. You know when you go to the water tap?
Yeah.
You go to the sink or the shower and you want water to come out, you turn it that way.
Yeah.
Always the same with the nuts and bolts, dipsticks or whatever.
Yeah.
If you want to undo it, same as you undo the water tap. When you do it up, turn the ni marangi, which way you turn the water tap, this one's the same. If you want to undo a bolt, undo it the same way as if you're undoing the water tap. That's the easy way to remember which way you got now. What did you find? Oh, sorry, I missed all that.
Yeah.
Was there any oil in there?
Yeah.
Oh, amazing.
Oil on it.
Yep,
Yeah.
okay. So if you're not sure, what you can do on these is just tip them over a little bit and see if the oil's starting to come up the hole, and it is. So that's good. That's good. Okay. We check the fuel, we check the oil, and what the next thing is? Main mark. Oh, we're getting somewhere. Yep. You know how this comes up? Got to squeeze it. Yo, so is the air filter in there? Yes, it is, and it looks reasonably clean. It's pretty good. Sometimes when we start an engine, we've got to use. Do you know what the choke is? Okay, this is the choke here. Now, when I push that choke down, see what happens? See how that covers the hole there?
Yeah.
That's what it's doing. So that's what that's doing. That's stopping the air from going in. And because the piston's going up and down and trying to suck the air and fuel in, if we block that off there, it sucks the petrol in instead. It sucks a lot more petrol in than air. There's a tiny little hole there that's let some air in, but we're going to get more fuel in there. And for a cold engine to start, when you're first starting a cold engine, you need a lot more fuel. It's what we call a rich mixture. We need more fuel when an engine is cold. And you may have noticed when you use a choke and you start an engine, it starts and then it goes slower and slower because it's getting too much fuel. So then we turn the choke off and the engine will run normally. So that's what the choke's for. If the engine's cold, the choke chokes the air, chokes the air from going in there, so it gets more fuel. It makes it easier to start. You marangi? Okay, so that air filter's main up. So we put him back on there. Make sure that clicks in place because we don't want it falling off. So we've checked the fuel, we've checked the oil, the air filter. Now we need to make sure that the fuel tap is on. And on this one, it's on all the time. There's no fuel tap.
Check the
Now the other one.
No. Check the
Compression.
compression.
Yeah. Well, we'll do that when we try and start. It's got compression, this one, so it should be okay. Now what they've got on these ones is they've got what's called a primer valve. See this little one here? We need to push that up about 2 or 3 times. Because this isn't like a normal carburetor. This is the carburetor, same sort of carburetors on a chainsaw. So that when if we're tipping it like this, or trying to get an edge done, the carburetor keeps running, like on the chainsaw. We've got to turn the chainsaw on its side or upside down. It's got a special carburetor. It had a whole lot of little gaskets in it. and it doesn't have a bowl, you know, like on the lawnmower. You know how we undid that bowl to check for water? Well, this one doesn't have a bowl, and this is the same sort of carburettor as a chainsaw. So we've got to press that up in there, and that primes the carburettor. You've only got to do that when you're starting it from cold. Now, so we're ready to start now. Just don't fall for this trap. You've got to make sure that this is turned on. Otherwise you'll spend hours and hours trying to start it. It's never going to start. It's got to be on. Okay? Choke's on. I didn't turn the choke off, did I?
Yeah.
If you flood an engine, you just got to keep going until you clear it. Now, if the engine's running too slow, you know you can adjust the idle speed. You know you can do that. You know how to do that? In here is a little screw. This is a screw we use for adjusting the idle speed. Yeah, just to make it run faster or slower. If it's running too slow and keeps stopping, you've got to screw that one up a little bit to make it run a little bit faster. And some lawnmowers have another screw for adjusting the mixture. You can actually adjust the mixture. But most of these small ones we've got around here they have a screw for adjusting the idle speed, but not the mixture. On the lawnmower, I can show you where that is. So idle speed on this one. But different brands have got them in different places. Here they've got. This is the hole for adjusting the low speed mixture, and this is for adjusting the high speed mixture, and this is for adjusting the actual idle speed itself. But to adjust, especially the high speed mixture, it's got to be running flat out, which makes a lot of noise. Then you adjust the screw until it starts what we call four-stroking, because it's so rich. You get to the stage where it's so rich it starts four-stroking, and then when it's under load it's going to be exactly the right mixture. But that makes a lot of noise when you're doing it like that. But we'll get this one going. I'll show you the effects of adjusting the mixtures. On the chainsaw, as we said before, these are a two-stroke engine. So they must, when you put the fuel in here, they must have oil. And see how it's got a symbol showing a Bowser and a drop of oil? That means that it must have the oil and petrol mixed together when it goes in here. Now, it's got to be the exact amount. You can't guess. So if you're not sure how to measure it, ask somebody who does. Don't try and guess, because you'll spoil it. When I first came out here about 8 years ago and I was working here, the supervisor gave the guys one of these chainsaws, like this big one, cost about $1,000, and they put straight fuel in there and they started it up, took it away, and it lasted about 10 minutes.
No oil.
No oil. You couldn't pull this one up, it's seized, finished, throw it away. So we've got to make sure we put the oil in there. We've got to have the correct oil, and we've got to have it in the correct, what we call the correct. It's a two-stroke, but you can get a special still oil. But normal two-stroke oil you can use in here, and different chainsaws have different different ratios, but it will probably tell you somewhere. I'd say on this one it's probably what we call 50 to 1, but you need to have a look in the book that came with the chainsaw. It's not written anywhere to find out how much it's supposed to have. So this is now the reason that this isn't a 4-stroke. If it was a 4-stroke, remember it'd have a dipstick and it'd have the oil down here. We'd measure the dipstick. But the problem is when you want to use this chainsaw on its side, like to cut a tree or upside down to cut a branch, all the oil would run away and it wouldn't work. So that's why they can't have 4-stroke chainsaws. Now in the chainsaw we also have, you know what this one's for? Oil for here. For that, yeah, for the chain. Now that chain needs adjusting. That's far too loose. So you can see all this oil here. That oil has come out of here and it's been pumped by the chainsaw into this groove here so that the chain is lubricated when it runs round and around here. Remember we said we can't have 2 bits of metal rubbing together. We must always put oil between them to stop them from getting hot and to stop them from wearing out. And that's why we put oil around this chain, and the chainsaw does it automatically, but you've got to make sure you top up the oil in the reservoir there. So that's the 2 things, the main things we've got to check for the chainsaw. If you want to, now on these ones, because they're a big engine, they have a start button here that you've got to press. You know about that? Have you used this chainsaw?
No. Only the normal.
See this button here? That releases the compression a little bit to make it easier to pull over. As soon as it starts, it'll pop that back up again.
Like a lock.
It's a little valve inside the engine that lets some of the air out, so it's not hard to pull. Okay, well we see if we can get it started, because then I'm going to show you what effect adjusting these screws has. Okay, so stand back. Now on this one here, when that lever's up there, it's stop. See how it's got an arrow up there that says stop?
Yes.
If we want to choke, we've got to choke the engine to start it. We squeeze the throttle and we can push that down into the choke position. Okay, and that holds the throttle on a little bit. So keep right away from the bar. Okay. When it fires, you can let that choke off.
Back to the middle.
Back to that runway, yeah, normal run. What I've done, I've used that one there to make the correct idling speed, and then I've used this one. What you do with this one is you screw it in till it starts to run bad. Did you hear how it started to run rough and run slow? Then you screw it back the other way, and you keep screwing the other way till it starts to run rough and bad. Then you screw it until you get the best sounding, the way it sounds the best and the smoothest. That's all you got to do. Okay. Now to adjust this one, I'm going to have to rev it full speed. So it's got that's a high speed adjusting screw. Pretty hard to pick up, but what you do is you adjust that screw until it starts. Yeah, that's coming from the that's what it's supposed to happen. That's coming from the bar, the chain bar. That's normal. Yeah. When it's running flat out, you need to adjust it. So I don't know whether you noticed, when I screwed it that way, it went really high and it was squealing. Then when I screwed it back this way, it ran a bit slow and it wasn't running even. Don't know whether you were able to pick that up, but no. But that's where the setting's got to be, because when it's under load and you're cutting a log, it's a lot harder for it to turn, and it needs that extra fuel at high speed, and that's how you adjust it. So if you've ever, don't muck around with those holes there unless you know what you're doing, because it'll make it very, very hard for somebody to get it started. Now, do you know how to adjust these chains?
No.
And with this screw in here, you know how to do this one? See, that's too loose. That's far too loose.
Maybe
Yeah,
this one here.
yeah, and there's
Unloose this too.
yeah, that you know, you'll loosen these two here, and there should be a screw somewhere
Here. In here.
down in there. Yeah, yeah, and that one. Sometimes they're there. Sometimes they're there, and on this one here, see this screw here. So this hasn't got a chain on it, but what you do is you loosen these two off here with this spanner that comes with it. Loosen those two, and then you tighten these two up. We'll do it on this one because we need to tighten that chain up. That's too loose. So the chains stretch, even if they keep stretching the whole time you're using them. So you've got to adjust it. So we'll adjust this one here. You want to do it?
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be too, yeah. It's best to keep it a little bit firm so that it doesn't wobble around too much. That looks alright. So what we want to do is get rid of that slack. So if you just tighten it up, you'll see the slack going. Okay, that's good. Now what you need to do is just make sure you still turn it easily. Maybe a little bit. Okay, that's alright. Now tighten it up, and we must recheck it after we tighten it, because sometimes they move when we tighten them up. Just check the chain. Just see if you can move it, yeah. Now the other thing we need to do is lock this so that it can't move, so that somebody doesn't come along and start it and not realise it's unlocked. It'd be dangerous, they could hurt themselves. If you ever pull a chain off to replace it, you've got to make sure you put it on the right way round, because the chain goes this way. Once again, if you're not sure, everything goes clockwise in an engine. When you look at an engine that's going around, goes clockwise. This goes the same. So the chain goes around that way. So the teeth, when the chain is moving, it's got to be this part here, the sharp part of the tooth, has got to be going against the wood on here or under here. If you have it the other way round, the back part of the tooth, which is blunt, yeah, if it's around that way, it won't work, because you've just got the blunt part of the tooth trying to cut the timber. So just be careful when you're changing the chain They won't go on anyway. They've got to go on the correct way. If you're not sure, just ask somebody who might know. And that's me, mate. Because sometimes I've got to ask people about things that I don't know. There's nothing wrong with that. Well, how does this go? Main muck?
Yeah.